Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for January 23rd, 2025. Well, my goodness, this market is on a run streak. We had warnings from Jamie Dimon, suggesting that the market was overextended, and we've had several others out there suggesting overextension in the market. And the bull said, you know what? Don't care, get out of my way. I want to buy something. So continuing to extend to the upside here in the market. Let's take a look at what happened overnight. First off, we had Asian markets last night. A little bit of struggle there in some of those Asian markets, but nothing too terrible bad. Australia was a little bit lower. Hong Kong saw some selling last night. We had the Nikkei up, India was up, Shanghai was up just slightly. So a little bit of bouncing around in there during the session, but overall did pretty well. If we take a look at European markets this morning, European markets have just a little bit of a mix, with the DAX bullish up 0.32%, the FTSE just a tiny bit bearish, down 0.06%, and the CAC bullish up 0.48%, so looking pretty good. Let's take a look at U.S. futures here this morning. Now, U.S. futures have also been bouncing around just a little bit here this morning. Everything was lower when I got up, but now we've got the pre-market pump going on. We can't have anything without a pump up in the morning lately, and we've got the Dow futures in the green by 46 points, but we still have S&P 500 futures down 7.25, and NASDAQ futures down 98 points. So we'll want to be keeping an eye on that. Let's take a look at what we've got going on in the bond market here this morning. Now, our bonds have been kind of problematic for us here, and we have just recently seen those bonds easing off here in the market. And this morning, well, we've got a little bit of pressure coming back into those bonds. If I throw up a chart of the US dollar, you can see US dollar started to pick back up just a little bit yesterday, and it is picking up a little bit more here this morning. We've got the 2-year bonds at 4.29%. 30-year bonds have moved up to, 10-year bonds have moved up to 4.63%, and those 30s are pushing back up to 4.85% as we head into some economic data this morning. So keep an eye on that. If we take a look at oil prices here this morning, well, oil, as the dollar is moving up, interestingly enough, oil is also moving up here this morning. We've got oil futures up just slightly, up about 37 cents a barrel at 75.82 a barrel. Brent is slightly higher as well, 79.34 a barrel. And natural gas started down yesterday morning, reversing strongly, and also seeing a little bit of bullishness here this morning with natural gas up about a nickel. If we take a look at cryptos here this morning, after some zooming upside moves, we're getting a little bit of a hesitation and pullback, a follow through to the downside from yesterday's pullback. Right now, Bitcoin down $2,382 a coin, coming back to visit 100,000, see if that's going to hold as support. Ether is also down 52.61 a coin, and the majority of those cryptos are lower here this morning, so keep an eye on that. We had good moves in precious metals yesterday, but now with the dollar gaining a little bit of strength here today, we've got gold a little bit lower here. You can see here in GLD, they're actually trying to push this up in the pre-market, but gold futures are actually down $10.70 an ounce, and silver futures are also down about 36 cents an ounce. Copper and platinum are lower here this morning, and palladium is just ever so slightly higher here today, up 0.17%. So keep an eye on those. So what does all that mean for the day? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Thursday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these charts and see if we can gain a little information about how we might want to approach the market today. Remember, we want to look at these charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be. We need to be very, very careful with this extension as it continues to run to the upside. I really get this sense right now that we're in a situation where everyone who is in might already be in, and if we get any whiff or hint of selling, that we could pile on a little bit to the downside here, relieving some of that buy pressure. But we'll see. Right now, if you look at this chart, we're pushing this resistance here. See if we can break on through here this morning, and if we can, the next resistance higher is going to be up in here. We might push just even a little bit higher here, coming up right underneath that resistance right there in that price action. And then, of course, beyond that, we're looking at a possible return to the highs of the market here. So watch that carefully. Now, we also want to be taking a look at the possibility that maybe we're forming this area here as a bit of a head and shoulders. It'd be an awfully funny looking head and shoulders, but that possibility that as we approach this resistance up here, we could see that occur, and maybe even still see that lower high occur in here. So with this stretch, be really careful chasing in, because if those bears have anything to say and we lose this support in here, well, then we can start pushing back down, and we could move pretty quickly, I think, in some of that pushback down, because I think a lot of folks would run for the door on nervousness here with all these warnings of being overextended. So watch that carefully. If the bears were to get going, I think we could push some pretty big points to the downside all at once. That doesn't necessarily mean we go down and we turn this back into a bearish chart. I'm not saying that. I'm saying a pullback is likely to occur in the market relatively soon, but we'll see. If we take a look at our SPY, also pushing up, pushed up there, kissed that resistance right there, that high in the chart. So now we have the potential here in the SPY. If the bears were to pull back, you can see a little shooting star. We're trying to pump it up in the pre-market here already this morning, but watch that carefully. If we don't hold this area of price support in the chart, then look for this gap in here to be filled to the downside, and then maybe even pushing on lower. We could look for maybe some big point moves if the sellers start. If the bulls can hang on in here, though, every reason to believe that they could, and if they do retest up here, then maybe even a breakout and new record highs here on the SPY. So keep a close eye on that. You want to make note in this move to the upside that we have left some really big gaps behind in this. So if the selling starts, there could be a filling of some of those gaps on the move back down. QQQ, very much the same in their rally, a really sharp rally to the upside, pushing this resistance here in the chart that I had, and we popped it temporarily yesterday, trying to push on through the top of this big black candle in here. And we found a little bit of resistance right there, pushing them back by the end of the day. But if those bulls can find that inspiration and push on through here, then maybe we can be up here testing all-time highs in the chart. Once again, if those bears get going here, and they got a little bit more energy here in the QQQ this morning, pushing down. So watch this area here. We've got some resistance in this chart, or support in this chart, that could hold us in that area. If it falls through there, well, I think we have that potential that we can move pretty quickly back down. So watch that carefully here. And remember, I'm not talking about this turning bearish. I'm talking about this coming back, finding some area of support, and actually establishing an upside trend instead of just this race and chase to the upside move that we've seen here lately. So watch carefully. If we look at IWM, well, IWM, it's pretty common where the Russell struggles, particularly when big tech is doing what it's doing. Big tech was the majority of the move yesterday, and it really sucks a lot of the energy out of the Russell here. We tried to get something going first thing in the morning and then ended up with an inside day pullback. You can see a little bit of bearishness here this morning on that. But if those bulls can get going, well, we can see the resistance high up here that we'd want to attack, and popping through there, then we might come back up here and see if we can deal with that big dark candle. But what we have seen here is when we get into this really rambunctious bullish move in tech, well, it makes it really difficult for the Russell. It just doesn't have enough momentum and breadth of the market to get that moving to the upside. If we take a look on the bearish side, of course, breaking back down below this trend in here, and this support could be significant, and that could raise a little bit of concern in the Russell. We do have some support down here, but you'll notice that support, we've got a gap in here that could be filled all the way down into there. Let's take a look at our VIX. Now, our VIX, though it pulled back early in the day, as we came to the end of the day, we started pushing back up. Now, once again, the good news here in this for the bulls is that we broke this trend here and broke it back down. So, excuse me, if those bulls can continue to find that inspiration today, we need to see that push right on lower through here and pushing down to some of these next levels in the chart. However, if those bears pick up a little bit here, we might push back up, test some resistance right in there on the chart. And then, of course, back up here, we could test that trend to see if that'll hold as resistance. Popping back through there might raise a little bit of concern in the market. So watch that carefully. We were to push back up through there. And I do think that might be possible if the bears get started, because I think we could see some pile-on selling just to get out of the way of a pullback. If we take a look at our T20s, our T2122, while we were moving up strongly yesterday, very strongly yesterday, you can see in here that we actually had more stocks declining yesterday than we had going up. And if you took a look at any of the heat maps out there, it was really because of big tech. Big tech was doing most of the buying. Everything else was just a little bit soft, and a lot of the market drifting lower, not really selling off heavy, just kind of drifting lower, so that we did relieve some pressure here in T2122. So that means if we can get some bullish data today, well, we can certainly have that opportunity that we can push right back up here. And we've seen that before, right over in these areas where we get this push down here and then boom, right back up. And we can even linger here for a period of time. We push down and we bang this out in here, trying to stretch that market higher in the market with exuberance. We'll want to be watching carefully for that possibility. But if those bears were to have inspiration given them today, and we can see a little bit of that coming into the NASDAQ this morning, well, we certainly have a big downside opportunity for those. And that's where I mean that pile-on could occur if the selling starts. We may have a rush to the door to unload some stocks and protect that profit. Let's take a look at our T2108. Percentage of stocks above the 40-day moving average declined yesterday. So again, this is just a repeat of saying that the majority of stocks weren't doing as well as big tech was. We slipped back here, about 42.5% of the stocks holding above their 40-day moving average. Obviously, pretty tough to make a super bullish case when we've got less than 50% of the stocks holding above a 40-day moving average. But that being said, if those bulls can continue to find inspiration here in the market, then we might push right up in there and test that 50-day or 50% area here really quick. It could happen today, and then start pushing on through and really start showing some improvement in the market. However, if those bears were to continue or follow through and engage on this, well, we can see we've got some supports down here that could catch us. Back beyond that, we might come down kind of hard in here. That's why I think there is that possibility. If we pile on in a sell-off, it could move pretty quickly and swiftly. Not necessarily take out lows, but create some turmoil in the market. T2107, percentage of stocks above the 200-day. We ran up there. We tested just above the 50% area, and yesterday we backed away on that, pulling back. So about 48.5% of the stocks holding above their 200, but that's not a big move. And if those bulls find inspiration today, heck, we could pop right back above that pretty quickly and start testing some more of these resistance levels here to the upside. If, of course, those bears find any reason to follow through, well, we can see those support levels here in the chart as well that could be tested if those bears were to get going. The good news is the pullback in here, we've got a pretty good area of support in here. Maybe it wouldn't get too out of control on a pullback. If we take a look at our T2101, well, T2101 showing that breadth, kind of giving us that little hook over up here. And oftentimes when you see that little hook over, that breadth starts to fade back just a little bit, and we get that pullback in the market. Now, if this bullish energy continues, well, just keep an eye on that. We could still spike up into here. Every reason to believe that that's possible. But also, if those bears were to come in and get going, we might see that breadth fade back a little bit. That energy to buy might be dying off just a little bit because of the stretch, and we might see that fade back. So watch that carefully. And then let's take a look at that economic calendar here for today. Our economic calendar, well, we've got a few things to be paying attention to, but it's not a very, very busy day. We've got, first off, jobless claims here this morning. We'll want to be watching closely for that. This certainly is our biggest market mover of the day, so watch that closely here before the market opens. We've got a natural gas report after that. Kansas City Fed manufacturing number, but it doesn't matter if it comes in bullish or bearish. We tend to ignore it as long as tech is doing well. We don't care about manufacturing, so watch that. We've got our bond auctions, a 4 and 8 week bill auction in here. We've got a petroleum status coming in here at noon today, which is later than normal, but watch carefully for that. And then we've got 10-year tips auction and a Fed balance sheet at the end of the day. Tomorrow, as you plan forward, we have maybe our most consequential day of data for the week. We've got a PMI composite, we've got existing home sales, consumer sentiment, Baker Hughes rig count. And something you want to be considering as you head into the weekend is just knowing that we've got an FOMC meeting next week with an FOMC decision coming next Wednesday. So think about your risk and planning, how you want to handle going into the weekend with those kind of things coming up next week. So let's take a look at our earnings calendar here for today. And our earnings calendar, kind of a busy one here today. We've got a lot going on here. We're going to hear from, and by the way, guys, you're going to have to click the link below the title of the video to take you back to the morning blog so you can pick up that full list of notables. We're going to really start ramping this up to where I cannot cover all of them in the morning prep video. So keep that in mind. We're going to hear from some airlines. ALK reporting this morning. We've got AAL reporting this morning. AUB, we're going to continue on with a lot of the regional type banks that will be reporting. ELV, FBP is going to be reporting. FSV, we've got Freeport going to report here, so keep an eye on miner here in copper. That one might be interesting. GATX will be in there. We've got GE reporting today, and a nice pop here so far this morning, pushing strongly up on GE. We've got MKC reporting today. Looks like it's just a little bit lower here this morning. NTRS reporting. PBBI will be in there. RCI will be reporting. We've got TECK Keep an eye on that. TCBI will be reporting. UNP, little railroad going on in there, and VLY and WNS. Those will all be the morning reports. There's quite a group for this afternoon as well. We're going to have CSX is going to be in there reporting, several banks in the afternoon. Intuit Surgical, ISRG might be one of the more notables to keep an eye on this afternoon. SLM and Texas Instruments is going to be in there this afternoon. But once again, make sure you click that link below the title of the video. That'll take you back to the morning blog where you can get all of those notable earnings reports. Let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you can do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you see these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube. Also click that bell icon when it pops up. That way you'll be notified every time I post these daily videos. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you can do me that favor, click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to continue to grow. Thank you so much for everyone who does take the time to do that. I truly appreciate it. Well, let's take a look at a few things here in the market at stocks that you might want to be paying attention to. Microsoft had a really big gap and strong move back to the upside, breaking through some resistance here in the chart. So huge upside move. Rest or pullback that holds a support could be really interesting in there for that next upside. That would establish that upside trend. Watch that carefully. However, though, it is also possible if we were to pull back strong enough in here, pull back, and we were to drop below this area, fall into that gap, we may actually create a lower high here in Microsoft. So keep an eye on that. Now remember, this is going to report on 129. A lot of anticipation in there. So be careful here with some of these trades. We have Apple. Big rally up, but we're rallying back up into some resistance in the chart, and they got some bad news today. The UK opening an investigation into Apple, and they're also including that into Google. But what you can see here is as we push back up into this resistance, and you'll want to notice that we've almost made it to the 200-day moving average. I think the possibility that this could still rally a little bit more up into here might be possible, but watch that carefully. I think pretty good chance Apple sees that 200-day moving average. And if we lose this major area of support in here, like we have, there is that potential we could move sharply lower here in Apple. So watch that closely. Now Google has been all kinds of bullish, holding this support up here, catching that bad news of that investigation here today. We've been trying so hard to pop this through, holding that support up there. Watch that carefully. If those bears come in on that and push this back down, we still have this trend here in the chart, but we'll see if that investigation has any effect. What we've seen here lately is doesn't matter what happens to tech. There's somebody out there that just can't wait to buy it, and they've been buy. So every reason to believe this could hold in here and just move right on higher. So watch that closely. Let's take a look at a couple other things in here. Ulta Beauty struggling here at the moment. I see potential of a Head and Shoulders top. This big old ugly black candle up here starting something maybe a little bit bearish here on Ulta, breaking down back here. Here's that little trend. We rallied up, tested it as resistance. We're starting to show that failure in here. If we look at our 50-day moving average, that's our best chance, I think, right now of holding this stock somewhere in here. But watch that closely. This easily could roll over to the downside, so keep an eye on Ulta. If we take a look at AMD here this morning, well, AMD has made that rally back up, and you can see if we've pressed this back into this area of resistance, breaking back above a little bit of support that comes from in here, breaking back above that. but I would watch this with that shooting star pattern right in there. I would watch for that possibility that could fade on down and move short. AMD has received quite a few downgrades here, so just watch that carefully here in the market. MDT, take a look at MDT. Medtronic has made a zooming upside move here, and now trying to determine whether it can find a little bit of support, a little bit of rest in here. So I would suggest maybe somewhere between where it is right now and maybe some support right in here, that if we can hold up in this area, I would look for that bullish opportunity for that to push on up. If we can find that hold in there, that little bit of rest. If we were to break back down below here, however, I think that might become into a little bit of a question whether or not that is a lower high in MDT. So watch that closely here. Pretty interesting looking chart. Keep an eye on some of these oil stocks. OXY pulling back here to this support area. This is going to be a really important area to hold on to. If Occidental were to slip back down through here, I think we start losing some of that momentum here in Occidental. If we can hold in this area, I think there's still a chance we could pop back up and start that upside trend, but watch that carefully here. It's one of the problems when we have a zooming market. We have no structure in that move, which means no major support areas in that price action lower. So if we start to fail, they can move pretty sharply lower all at once. So watch that carefully. Now Ralph Lauren continues to hang in there. Now I know it's not a big mover, and it's not something that makes all kinds of news, and certainly not a techie, but you gotta love a stock that just moves methodically. No drama in it, moving on up. Keep an eye on that. Any rest or pullback now, you might find an opportunity there in Ralph Lauren. Lulu, I thought for sure that elastic in here had snapped on those stretchy pants and we were just gonna fall off of this edge right here, but nope, they grabbed a hold of it. That elastic, it seems to be pretty resilient, and we pushed back up. So watch that carefully here. If we can hold this support, we need to hold it in here and maybe even recapture a little bit up in here and establish an upside trend. We may have something going there, but I really would not rule out if those bears were to start coming in here in the market and we drop below here, drop through there, I think we could have a really quick trip to fill this gap here in Lulu. So watch carefully for that. J&J had a kind of an ugly drop yesterday on its earnings report and then bounced right back up. So pushing back up, let's keep an eye on this. Maybe J&J might be saying, hey, the bottom is coming into this chart. Watch that carefully. I still think there's some challenges here with the new administration and the way they're planning to go after these drug makers, but watch that carefully here. If this is starting to show that resiliency here on this low, we might have finally reached that place where institutions say, hey, this is too cheap. It's time to start buying in a little bit here, maybe seeing if we can develop a bottom. So watch that close here on J&J. TTWO, this has been struggling in here. I understand Take-Two has got a new game coming out that's supposed to be something that'll sell like hotcakes, I guess, and pushing up here through this downtrend again. And what I like about this is we didn't just push up this time and then drop right back through. We pushed up and we're just kind of fading this out. So what that does do for us is it gives us that opportunity. If the bulls can find some inspiration in here and pop this back up, we have established a little upside trend. And you'll notice in here that we could have a little bit of inverted head and shoulders pattern starting to show up in there. So keep an eye on Take-Two. There may be some opportunities coming in that. So with that, everyone, there's some stocks. I'm running this video a little bit long. along. Hey, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. I want to wish you great results in your trading. Thanks so much for listening, being here. Thanks for sharing these videos on your social media feed to help attract more people to this. You guys are awesome. Y'all take care. Be safe. See you right back here bright and early Friday morning. Wish you all the best.